our June 18th regular Board of Education meeting. May I have a roll call, please?
Sandra Bradford.
Here.
Barry Altshuler.
Here.
Leah Collister-Lazari. Katie Karam.
Here.
Erin Chandang.
Here.
Steve Wang.
Here.
Diana Clapton.
Here.
All right, would you please rise and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you again for being here. I will jump right into my report and just remind everybody why we're here: to empower personal excellence in every learner. I wanted to give a quick report. Can you display our photo here? I think it was just last week.
Yeah,
Last weekend, several board members were able to participate in our volunteer planting day, which will show up here eventually. The board helped plant ornamental corn, sunflowers, and different types of pumpkins, which we will then be able to use at our upcoming fall festival. And I'm not sure, we're going to raise some money. I'm not sure where the money is going to go, but please plan to attend the fall festival and see our efforts. Also, and you'll see a picture of the board in a few minutes here.
We're just modeling really
Yeah,
good
real
IT,
time.
safety, two-factor authentication.
Exactly.
Just for-
Take your time. Take your time. I'll
Safety and security.
we can also show it right during your report too, if we get to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Just a lot of fun. There you can see, I think this is the corn in the bottom left. And it's all growing well, as I hear. So, thank you, Erin, Lee, and Steve, and Erin for bringing your family along too.
I was about to say, she's
Great.
got extra labor.
And so, also, I'll just jump, shouldn't probably do this, but we will have an upcoming opportunity for us to weed the garden in a Saturday soon, so watch your email for that opportunity to help weed. Thank you all for all of your participation in our ISB Board Governance Recognition that submission that we'll be submitting within the next couple of weeks. So stay tuned as we'll be sending out the compilation that Erin put together for us. And so we'll be able to take one more look at it before we actually do the submission. And in celebration of our 50th anniversary, the Village of Barrington has invited the Board of Education to Grand Marshal the 4th of July Parade. So watch for us at the 4th of July Parade. I think we have at least 4 board members planning to attend with Dr. Winkelman. So that'll be very exciting. Watch for us there. And just a reminder, again, that III is open, so get to Janine, board members, if you plan to attend the III in November. And that concludes my report. And we have no one signed up for public comment, so we will move right into Dr. Winkelman's report.
All right. Hopefully the authentication is still good, that we can pull up mine. Thank you, Janine, for keeping us organized.
Thank you, Janine.
So for my report this evening, I'm going to start with 2 administrative recommendations. First, we have Daniel Andres, our Assistant Director of Facilities role. Daniel is coming to us presently from the Assistant Superintendent of Facilities with Glenview Park District, where he has worked since 2012. Previous experience as lead HVAC technician and technician installer, as well as a maintenance custodial role in Des School District 62. Daniel also brings an educational background in HVAC and refrigeration certification from ETI, Environmental Technical Institute. Also heard a little bit about pool as well, and is presently taking courses pursuing his associate's degree from Oakton Community College. So welcome, Daniel. We will give you an opportunity to address the board a little later in our agenda, but welcome. And then our second administrative recommendation for the board's consideration tonight is for the next principal of Grove Avenue Elementary School. We are recommending Kelly Harridan, who is a familiar face here in Barrington School District. A little bit about Kelly. Kelly has held a number of roles. I think she's trying to rival me with the number of positions that you can hold in District 220. So I started her career in 2007 as an elementary teacher, then moved into an instructional coach and literacy coach role from 2011 to 2014, an extended resource teacher at Huff, and then most recently this past year serving as our teacher on special assignment as a assistant principal at Grove. Kelly holds degrees from Lake Forest College in art history with a minor in math and science, plus endorsements in teacher leadership, gifted, and principal preparation, as well as a master's from National University. And fun fact, Kelly is a Grove alum. She actually started at Grove. So congratulations, Kelly. Also, hold off for just a little bit for the board, and then we'll give you an opportunity to address. Next up, I just have 2 more slides. So each spring, the 5 Essentials survey is a process that was designed by the University of Chicago, and it's a survey that focuses on 5 domains that indicate the type of organization that leads to successful schools. The domains are listed here on the slide. We received feedback on the categories of involved families, a supportive environment, ambitious instruction, collaborative teachers, and effective leaders. And I am pleased to report that we just last week received our scores in 220 clean sweep. We were rated as strong performance in all 5 categories, so I thought that was worth noting. Again, this is annual feedback that we receive from our parents and our staff on how we're doing as a school district in these categories, and I think that shows progress for us as a district, and it's important because we actually do use the feedback to help drive some of our work and decisions as a district. And then my last slide, I'm very excited to share a Congressional Art Award. Zara Cosme is here tonight, and let me explain a little bit about this award because I believe she's the first ever award winner for District 220. So we have not presented this before, so it's a pretty special night. So a little bit about the award. So each member of Congress can nominate 1 recipient from his or her district. Congressman Chris Morty chose Zara for her art, and she will have it showcased in an exhibit at the U.S. Capitol, and it will be shared online. The winning artworks hang in the Cannon Tunnel of the U.S. Capitol for 1 year. The tunnel is the most highly traveled access point between the U.S. House of Representatives and the U.S. Capitol. Every day, members of Congress, distinguished visitors, and tens of thousands of tourists from the United States and abroad will walk through the tunnel and get to admire Zara's artwork. We are so proud that Zara, who's going to be an incoming senior next year, a rising senior, had her artwork selected for this prestigious competition for the Illinois Congressional District 8. This is a very special accomplishment. Hundreds of students from each district submit their work. When the 8th district shared that BHS, that Zara's artwork was selected, they also stated that Zara's excellent submission that illustrates the Chicago River Walk, you can see that in the painting, is of exceptional quality and truly sets her apart in a competitive field of submission. So congratulations, Zara.
I got chills.
Isn't that so
Yeah,
cool?
it's very exciting.
So I love your piece. The colors and the depth of this piece of art are just tremendous. Would you like to share anything about your artwork with us?
Is this on?
It is.
Okay. I just wanted to start off by saying thank you so much for this recognition. It really means a lot to me. Art has always been my passion ever since I can remember, so receiving this award and this recognition means a lot. This piece was something I worked on for many months. I want to say at least 6 months at the art school I attend in Lake Zurich, so it's very dear to my heart. And I just wanted to finish by saying that I have always appreciated how much Barrington values the fine arts and how much it encourages its students to really be passionate about the arts, and I think that's wonderful. So thank you once again.
Congratulations.
So did you hang out downtown to do this painting, or did you take a picture and paint from the picture, or how did you do this?
Yeah, I was actually in downtown with my family, and it just looked so surreal. Like, the sky that day was just so beautiful, and I was really inspired. So, yeah.
It's great.
Did you take a picture
Yes. it
and
was
then
cool.
bring back?
Keep staring at it. I know. The shadows and the brickwork there on that little wall by the
Yes.
staircase, that's what just draws my eye. It's amazing.
What's the medium you used? Was it oil paint? Acrylic? Oh, that's beautiful. I love the perspective. I just want to like run down those stairs.
Not walk, run, Aaron. She's a runner.
I was there this weekend. It looks just like where I was.
Congratulations.
So beautiful.
Would it be okay if we took a picture with you? Okay.
And can we get a copy of it to display here or something? I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah.
That would be
Is that
awesome.
right?
With a little annotation of where the real art is hanging?
We don't have a tunnel, but we can have a special place.
Yeah. We could make a tunnel, I don't know.
Maybe not.
How about one more round of applause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're just here because.
Alrighty, here we go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Let's do one more. 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
You got one from center? Congratulations. Amazing.
Yeah, just check.
Oh, good.
Right, and they're
Doctors
shopping,
are-
yeah, if they change it, no,
Right,
so.
I hear you.
Sure.
Any questions for Dr. Winkelman before we move on? Okay. Next up is informational reports. Does anybody have any comments or questions on them? I actually had one. Just a quick question. If we respond that there's no response, do we explain why we're not responding?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Excellent.
Yep, that's in the response with the explanation.
Ah, excellent. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Anyone else? Okay, so let's move on to board committee reports.
Finance Committee just met right before our meeting today, and we had 3 topics. First is minibus purchase. Committee discussed lease options for our district's 3 student activity buses. The current buses we have are under lease, and we return them the end of June. So it's time for new buses. And we decided to go with a 5-year lease to buy option for the buses. So it's leasing, but at the end of 5 years, we have equity in that we can keep the buses. If they're in great shape, we can use them and extend their life, and if not, there'll be some residual value, we can sell them, and then just start the process over. So as I said, the current lease expires at the end of June. It's expected the new buses should be available before the start of the new school year. So we'll keep our fingers crossed on that. And this will be brought to our next meeting in July to get the official okay. Second is an Apple lease renewal. We discussed the renewal of the Apple lease for computers to support our BHS TV program. These are special devices required to run the editing software that is used by our students, and the devices are brought to the board every 4 years. This lease is fully funded by something called the Perkins Grant, and our committee is very supportive of this idea, and so because we are doing a lease, and we're going to still bring this to the board in July. The last thing, we wanted to kind of pick Dave's brain before he heads off into retirement, so we wanted a property development update. We wanted to kind of get an idea of what's happening in our 220 area.
We have, large surface area, or square miles of district. And we wanted to just review data gathered by the business office for new property developments that are known to be either occurring or are planned in the near future, all in local municipalities. Some developments have well-defined plans with proposed building or apartment units. Others are just custom home developments. And we just discussed the results from a model for estimating potential student enrollment associated with these new developments that was used to provide perspective on the potential enrollment impact of these developments once they're completed. And the good news is, none of these developments is going to overtax us. So, I don't want to be misquoted on that, but right now it looks like if these do come to fruition, our current schools will be able to handle these without any issue. So we'll have two things coming next meeting for us to vote on.
Will Dave bring an update on what the different areas are, where the
Oh.
development is?
Yeah, we got
We
that.
can
Oh, we got that.
You got that?
Yeah, we
Okay,
got
so
that.
Yeah, we-
if I
we'll-
look in I can find it and read it.
We'll upload that onto board docs, and it'll be available for all board members.
Because there's pockets of developments around the district that are happening, right?
Yes.
Yes, okay.
And I wanted to add, I went to 2 meetings last week, which I found both were very, very interesting. The first was with George Kuros. It was the administration, teachers, parents, and actually there were many other school districts also at Willow Creek. He's a phenomenal guy. He talks about, the name of his book is The Innovator's Mindset, and he just talks about learning and creativity and, how to be better teachers and educators, both as parents and as our educators. And, his bottom line is, if it's working, you don't have to redo things. But when you see things getting stale, there's a way to really update what you're doing and, to keep it exciting for the students and exciting for the educators. So I was really honored to be there and got a copy of his book, and that was phenomenal. And then this weekend, I went to something from the Association of School Boards, the IASB. It was called the President's Panel, if you will, but it was for vice presidents, and there were many school board members there, as well as a couple superintendents. It just talked about how to run efficient meetings, how to anticipate issues as a president or vice president in the school board, how to relate with the superintendent, and I just found it really helpful, and I got to network with lots of people. It was a very friendly group, and it was very worthwhile spending my Saturday with this group of people. So I just wanted to mention it was a great event, and I'm going to share more with the rest of the board.
Thanks, Barry. Anyone else?
I attended the Education Foundation last week with Dr. Winkelman, and they were very happy that they had a banner year, having a gala that raised more money than they've ever raised before, and they were very proud of the incubator program and the pitch night where there were 2 groups that got funding, and it was interesting because one group got more funding and one group got less funding, and it was like, well, who was first and who was second, and it was like, you know what, everybody got funding. So it was nice. It wasn't so cutthroat. And then a third group is gonna look for independent funding. So I'm just so proud of those students, and I'm so thankful for the Ed Foundation that they do these good things for our school district and fun things. And they were curious how the update is for the refresh of the art rooms this summer that Dr. Winkelman said is, gonna happen soon, and that the teachers were kind of moving out of there so that things could happen. So that was all nice and good. So yeah, that was good.
Excellent.
Are we anticipating that the funds will be spent this summer, or are we waiting for further?
No, it would be this summer, so the
Oh.
staff just moved out.
Oh, great.
That was the update.
Great.
And items have been selected as far as furniture and cabinets and so forth. Flooring, I think, will be one of the first projects that, once the teachers have vacated those spaces. So,
Oh, great. Thank you
and
very
put
much.
back together so that it's on time to start the new school year in the fall.
Great.
Awesome.
So good stuff.
Yeah, thanks to that Ed Foundation for sure. Anything else? All right, let's move on to our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
All right, let me just read through what we've got on our consent agenda. We have minutes, both open and closed, from June 4th of this year. Finance reports, we have May reports for the wage and payroll, treasurers, and revenues and expenditures, and the June report bill list, and a revised personnel. So if you didn't see the revision, please take a look at it quickly. Are there any questions? All right. All right, let's do a roll call.
Sandra Bradford,
Yes.
Leah Colister-Lazari,
Yes.
Diana Clapton.
Yes.
Steve Wang,
Yes.
Katie Carum.
Yes.
Erin Chan Ding,
Yes.
Barry Altschuler.
Yes.
All right, motion passes.
All right, so now it is official. So maybe we'll go in the order, that's right, that I introduced you tonight. I think, Daniel, you go by Dan, right?
Yes, correct.
All right, would you like an opportunity to address the board?
Sure. I would like to thank the board for this opportunity. It's a great opportunity for me, and I'm really looking forward to starting work and working with everyone here in the Barrington School District. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
They told you. They told you about all the revisions that we've got going on, right? So you're not scared away. Awesome. Happy to have you here.
We have a little swag bag for you.
Awesome.
Get you started. Welcome to the district.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Woohoo.
Welcome.
For Dr. Winkelman, Executive Council, thank you so much for having me here tonight. This is an honor, literally of a career, to be here, and I'm looking forward to serving the Grove community in this new capacity. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Welcome. You've been around. It's your first official administrative role in the district as
Yes.
principal. So we have a bag for you.
All right.
I'm sure you have a closet full of. Yeah.
I think I might be the only Grove parent here, so
Aw.
if you need any help.
And we have some Grove staff here as well. Give them a-
All right.
Excellent. Congratulations. All right. Well, with no further ado, let's jump into our discussion items. Jump right into it.
First item this evening is our summer projects budget update. This came up a few meetings ago, and we promised to come back with some updates. I'd like to invite Dr. Bine and Sarah Lager and Nicole. I think, Dan, you're welcome to stay or not, but I think the team is coming up front, up front to help provide some details for the discussion this evening. And that is a sharp sport coat, Dr. Bine.
Thank you very much.
We are all here for it.
Yes.
Did you build that?
I don't have enough presentations on my computer.
You don't have
They're not on my thing anymore.
maybe refresh.
I had them earlier. I just can't see.
I had to join the meeting twice for some reason.
Aw.
I had to rejoin.
Ah, back.
Okay.
All right. They're back, we're good. Okay.
All right, thank you, Board. We're happy to be here tonight, talk about facilities maintenance and follow up to some conversations that we've had at the Facilities Committee as well as at the board table. I want to start with a little bit of background. As you know, we have a lot of facilities and a lot of space that we maintain. So we've got 12 schools, a transition facility, administrative office, and some vacant parcels. It's about close to 1.4 million square feet under roof, a little bit over 200 acres of property that we manage. It's like 700 homes. So if you think about a 700 home development, that's what our buildings and grounds team, that's what Nicole and her staff are trying to maintain. And if you think about your home and what it costs to maintain your home or to put on a new roof, well, we're doing that for 700 and trying to manage all that, right? So, you know, our buildings aren't all new. You know, as you know, Barrington High School, a little bit older, having opened in 49. Our most recent building is the ELC from 2010. On average, our buildings are from 1980. We've had additions
over the years, from 57 to even as recently as last year. But if you think about a 1980 average age, that's starting to get long in the tooth. Now, I don't want to offend anyone. We're talking building age, not people age here. But schools aren't typically designed with an indefinite life. They're built at a particular time to support learning styles with technologies that exist at that point in time. Older buildings are more expensive to maintain. They're also more expensive to renovate when you start to take a look at trying to adjust facilities to make them consistent with today's needs. You may be familiar with going into an older building and looking for a power outlet to plug in your phone, and it's harder to find. Or trying to get cell service in an older building. But these are things that are symptomatic of older buildings that we experience in education, including some of our facilities that we actively have had to work around to modify or to improve to provide the right kind of access. When we think about the value of our buildings, current replacement cost is approximately $779 million for our facilities. And it does take annual reinvestment into our facilities to make sure that we preserve the investment that the community has made in facilities for safe and appropriate learning environments for our students. So that's the background, that's sort of the setup for our conversation. Board, any questions about the existing facilities and sort of the setup for you?
How many acres again? That was impressive.
Say again, please?
How many acres was that?
It's a little bit over 200.
That's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot of mowing.
I'm surprised the replacement value is only that much.
Well, and that it goes up, each year. Now it is not, of course, the value of the underlying property that starts to take a look at what are the building values that are on top of the property. So that's sort of where that comes from. Interestingly, it's actually significantly higher than it was not too long ago for reasons I'll talk about in a minute. So as that has gone up.
Awesome.
From a maintenance perspective, I want to also give you some information about what do we spend to maintain our buildings. Because we do spend a lot of money. When you approve the budget, we spend money on our facilities. So the most familiar thing that comes to mind is summer projects. And we've been spending $2 to $2.5 million, up to $3 million sometimes in summer project money, primarily funded through our debt service extension base, or DSEB. And in fact, DSEB, just to remind you, in our 5-year forecast, we've assumed that we are going to continue to fund through DSEB. Now, we've had the good fortune over the last couple of years to not need to do that. So we've avoided doing a DSEB issuance. That has been part of our history, and it is part of our plan in that we're not positive we can make it work without doing that. But more to come on that. We spend another about $500,000 out of our operating budget. That's where we get up to that about $3 million in total on summer projects. We've been spending about 2 to 2.5 from DSEB. That number has changed over time as it goes up with CPI. And we've been budgeting $500,000 out of our regular operating budget. We also have routine maintenance that we invest into our facilities. And that is, again, through our regular operating budget. Our 10-year average, annual average, is that each year we're spending about $4.3 million on top of that. And this would be things like plumbing, electrical work, other types of maintenance. So we have pretty significant investment into our facility. That's just part of what we do to keep our buildings going. Now, we also do some investment every 20 years. And that is through a request with our community to approve referenda so that we can do more significant, large, periodic investments in maintenance projects. It's tied to the 20-year bond issuance cycle, which is why we talk about a bicentennial maintenance approach. Now, philosophically, the 220 board has taken the approach that as a school district, we're not going to be a bank for the community. What we're going to do when we want to make an investment in large projects that need to be done, we're going to go to the community, tell them what we need to do, why we want to do it, and ask for the approval to be able to do that through a referendum. So that is what has been the philosophical approach. Now, that if we don't do that, just to provide a perspective, because some folks say, well, why don't you just save for this stuff? And okay, that's actually, it is a viable approach, and there are some districts that do that. If you want to do that, though, you have to collect more taxes than you need each year. So there's higher taxing and larger fund balances because you have to save the money. So when you're going to do a project, for example, replace a roof, which is typically about 20 years that you're going to do a roof replacement, that means if we replace a roof right now, we would tax at a little bit higher rate for the next 20 years, and we would collect money from our taxpayers. We would hold on to their money for the next 20 years. And in 20 years' time, we would then pay cash for the roof. So that's one approach. The approach that we have done, though, is the other way. And by the way, over those 20 years that we would be saving money, people would be paying for the roof, but they would not be actually experiencing the roof. They'd be paying for something they're not getting. When we borrow money and then do it through a referendum, and then do the roof work, and then pay back over the next 20 years, we just paid for the roof, and now we're doing the payback. So everyone who is now paying taxes to repay that borrowing is actually experiencing the benefit of the new roof. So by paying in arrears, the people who get the benefit from the work are paying for it. And if someone moves out after 10 years of a 20-year bond issuance, they got 10 years of the benefit, and then the people who move in for the next 10 years get the next 10 years of benefit, and they pay for it. If we collect in advance, imagine even worse. We collect for 19 years to replace a roof. You've paid for 19 years, and now you move. You never got to benefit from the roof, but you paid for 19 years of it. All right, so look, there's not a right way or wrong way. It is a philosophical approach, and I'm belaboring this a little bit because I want to make sure, board, that you understand there are different ways to think about this. And in coming to Barrington, I heard about very clearly what the philosophical bent of the board was and what we've tended to do over time, which is we're not going to be the bank, we're not going to have big fund balances where we're going to go pay cash for everything. We can always change that, and it's not a problem. And there are arguments to be made. We could save the money, have a bigger fund balance. As your business manager, I always like having big fund balances because it gives me that sense of protection. If anything breaks bad, we've got some money in the bank, all right? Now, I say that half jokingly because you've also heard me say over the years, I'm pretty comfortable with where we are with fund balances, and I've not come to you saying I feel that we need to really increase our fund balances. So if we want to change how we fund our facility improvements, though, I would make that argument to you, and I would expect Sarah and Nicole would come to you and say the same thing. We're going to have to increase our fund balances because there's no way to save for those 20-year projects in the future unless we start saving today. So, all right, there's the philosophical approach around our historical approach to reinvestment. So I'd like to now switch to what level of investment is needed. Now, there are at least a couple dozen different models that exist for determining what kind of investment is really appropriate in school districts or other commercial facilities. Now, the plant replacement model is one that is often used for making budgeting and planning decisions in government. Very widely used in the federal government. We felt in looking at a whole variety of different models that this was a reasonable approach for us to consider in trying to figure out what a good reinvestment amount might be to provide some guidance for us here in Barrington. Now, this model would say that a range of reinvestment would be somewhere between 1.25 and 2% of your replacement value of your facilities is about what you should probably be spending every year. Now, that is a combination, that's your all-in number. So that's not just your summer project kind of number. That's your routine annual maintenance and your special project improvement kind of numbers. In our case, as we thought about it, we said, well, we know what we're spending on average each year, about $4.3 million. We know what we're doing with summer projects. We also have these referendum dollars that are about on a 20-year cycle. We're going to take that and spread that over 20 years because we don't want it to all sit in one, but let's make sure that it reflects typically the life of those investments. Now, we also know that replacement values change over time. And they change according to the cost to replace a facility. Now, we've talked over the last few years about the Consumer Price Index and what inflation has been doing. Inflation's been fairly high. We're starting to see a little bit of softening on the inflation numbers, but it is a slower softening of inflation that's been happening. But one of the things that we've talked about is how not everything is even. We've talked about how food over the last couple years was really high on the inflation side, and many people saw that in their pocketbooks and every time they went to the grocery store. We've also talked about how construction inflation has been high. And what I have for you on the slide, just as a reminder, is that replacement values, the building cost index, has gone up faster than the regular Consumer Price Index. And Consumer Price Index, CPI, is a measure of overall inflation. So it's been double over the last 10 years. So that's why, Sandra, when I go back to my comment earlier about why is that replacement number bigger than it was, because the cost to replace buildings has been going up. This is one of those challenges where you think about deferring maintenance projects. You can, but there are problems sometimes with deferring maintenance. One is that some things get worse. It's always the leaky roofs that we've talked about over the years. You never want to delay replacement or fixing a leak in a roof, because if you delay it, the problem's definitely going to get worse. That's one of the problems. The other thing is that it's going to cost more to do the same work next year than it did this year because of inflation. And in fact, the building cost index would say it's going to go up even faster than your regular inflation. All right. So tried to set you up thus far with what's the historical perspective and what the level of investment is. Now I'm going to move into a little more dollars kind of stuff. Are you still with me, board? Okay. All right. This graphic shows you if we don't do anything on our reinvestment amount, if we keep it flat, what does it look like when we take a look at the 1.25% to 2% bound on the plant replacement model? Now, those values go up every year according to the projected increase in costs for building costs. So they're inflated. That's why they go up a little bit. If we keep our investment flat, what you can see is very quickly we're out of the range. When we first talked about this range back in 2019, I think, was the first time that we shared some of this information with the Facilities Committee. We were still sort of hanging right around that lower portion of the range. And you can see we're still sitting right around that lower portion of the range, but fairly quickly, if we keep things flat, we're going to be out of the lower level, recommended level of investment here. So this would be an argument for saying we should probably increase our investment level. Now, investing always at the low end, at that 1.25 level, buys you something, right? It buys you a level of building condition. Reinvesting at the 2% level buys you a higher level of building condition. When we look at it, sometimes it's nice to say we want to be in the range and keep our buildings at a certain level, or maybe we want to actually have our buildings be a little bit nicer than they are. And that all gets driven by the level of reinvestment. So I want to mention that to you to keep in mind. it may be okay to skirt right along the bottom of the curve, but maybe we really want to be a little closer to the middle of the curve to be able to make sure that our buildings really provide the kind of environment that we want in Barrington. So as we look at the next school year, or fiscal 25 year, per the plant replacement model, now I'm backing out the routine maintenance so we can really talk a little more about the summer projects, because we're going to budget for the routine maintenance. So it already factors that in. So now what's left after we take out the routine maintenance? The plant replacement model would argue for a reinvestment of about 3.3 million to 6.1 million. That's about where we should be for next year. So we've been running that $2.5 to $3 million range on our summer projects. So as we start to look at next year, this would be an argument for actually raising that a little bit, and again, an argument for considering adjusting our approach to tie our reinvestment to inflation. That way, we can sort of keep up with the inflation model and not risk falling below. Another piece of information in preparation for a discussion board, that question that's come up is, where are we on our capital projects fund? And we've talked a little bit about that in the past. Of course, you get the financial reports, but I wanted you to make sure that we've put that in front of you. Current fund balance around $16 million, but we've got some projects that we've earmarked over the last few years that are in there. So we've got a solar project. We're actually receiving our proposals in Thursday. I knew it was this one. Like, with the holiday, I got confused about which day we were on. So they're coming in on Thursday. So we're going to evaluate those, but we've got some money set in to prepare for that. We also know that with that we would pay money out of the capital projects fund for solar, but then shortly thereafter there are rebates that would come back that would replenish some of the money that we would spend. So you also see a line in there right in the middle, which would be the solar rebates spread out over 7 years. We would get some money back in. We also have earmarked funds for the high school stoplight and for the right turn lane at the ELC. We also have some remaining commitment on this summer's summer projects, about $500,000. So the estimated unreserved funds, about $11 million. Now, keep in mind, especially with solar, we put some budget numbers in here. We don't know where those proposals are coming in. We haven't gotten them yet. We haven't opened them. We haven't looked at them. So there's some uncertainty as to exactly what those numbers are. So this is more of a directional item for you. It's not that we have exactly 10.9. So if we come back to you in a month and say, well, hey, we might have had in our RFP documents 8.5 million in as a budget number. The prices came in lower, higher, where they came in, and all this adjusts. I don't want you to be shocked by that. So that you're clear, we're using some budget estimates off our RFP document. All right, I want you to have an idea about where the capital projects fund is. So with that, we thought there might be some conversation board that you would want to have. We thought would give you three. Oh, well, yes, we're done now. Great discussion.
Ding, ding, ding. Time's up.
Three. Well, trust me, I think everyone else over here is probably like, yeah, we were ready, Dave, a little while ago for you to be done. Three questions we thought might be good conversation starters for you, which is, starting sort of, again, philosophically, should the targeted level of reinvestment in the future be increased and be adjusted with inflation? You can probably tell what your administrative team's recommendation is on that, but again, this is a board conversation for you to think about and give us some direction as to what you would like to do. The second question was on our 5-year forecast. Again, as I said earlier, our 5-year forecast assumes the use of DSEB. Now, your business office will tell you if we don't have to issue DSEB, we're thrilled to come to you to say, we don't think we have to. But it's not clear that in any of the years we have in our 5-year forecast, that's a given that we don't have to. There may be some unusual circumstances that happen along the way that would allow us to not have to. But is there support for the ongoing use of DSEB? along with some variable budget surpluses to support facility reinvestment. And the variable budget surpluses really is referring to the fact that sometimes we end up with a larger budget surplus than we may have budgeted. And historically, the board has taken those funds, put it into the capital projects fund for some project in the future. Now, that money could be then taken and said, well, we're going to really just use that to knock off some of our maintenance projects that we have. We can actually take some of that money. Maybe we've got $500,000 in surplus funds, rather than just putting it in the capital projects fund for we don't know what. Maybe now we're going to take that and actually allow that to be used for summer projects. Now, we also have, for example, things like turf coming up. It was one of my first projects that I did when I came to the district was working on turf at the stadium. And we were talking just recently, that's going to be coming up again. It's going to be a couple of years, and these ladies will be talking to you about, hey, that project is coming up. We need to be thinking about that again. But I think we're in a better place to be planning for these and being able to be thoughtful around where the funds are coming from. So it may not be as much of a, okay, how do we budget for it? I think we can be more intentional around that and not have to rely on just some reserves that we accumulated over 10 years. So anyway, the idea here was maybe we can spend some of that money because we're a little more thoughtful around what's coming and we know what's going to be happening. All right, and the third question was, should we come back with, as your administrative team, come back with some cost-saving options that would support an increased level of facility reinvestment? You know, whether that's $1 million or $2 million, don't know. That we can also take that feedback from you, but the question was more general. Do you want us to take a look at what those options might be? So with that, Sandra, I'll turn it over to you. That we thought those might be conversation starters for the board.
Okay. So, board, as we read through this, I'm kind of feeling like, let's just maybe take these in order. Maybe the first and the third maybe kind of go together. But, board, how do you feel about increasing the amount we've been spending to date? The amount we've been spending to date is 2 to 2.5 plus another $500,000, right? That's what you showed on the prior slide.
Yes.
Right, so we've been reinvesting 2.5 to 3 million every year. The targeted amount that was shown on another slide was 3.3 to 6.1. So is the board interested in increasing that level?
Can I ask a clarifying question?
Mhm.
So in Jen Prindle's memo, she said if we followed the plant replacement model, we're looking at reinvesting between 9.7 million for the floor and 15.6 million for the ceiling.
Right,
This is-
and that
this
includes all, for all investment. What I tried to do was to then make that a little easier for the board to think about what do we normally talk about, which is really summer projects. So we backed out all of that annual maintenance that we already do. That's part of our regular operating budget. So that's still there. We're not suggesting we don't do that. We are going to do that. This is really the above and beyond amount that goes into the summer projects and other kind of related investments.
Thank you for clarifying. So far, we're right around 3, and the recommendation is between 3 and 6.
That's correct.
So, Sarah, did you want to say?
I was just gonna mention that the money that we're spending on the referendum is part of that. So when it says $10 million, you also take the referendum and you spread that out. So to say 10 million, we're not saying 10 million more, it's part of referendum investment, our regular maintenance, and summer projects.
You can show that
Thank you.
graph again that shows
Yeah.
that, right? Does that make sense?
Well, and part of this is that the summer projects, the money we're spending for roofs and paving is not getting as much as it used to, right?
That's correct.
And that's mainly what the summer projects are, right? And being on the facilities, so we've got all these buildings, they all have roofs, they all have pavement, and we're just not getting the bang for our buck that we did before, is part of this equation, if I understand it correctly, right?
That's absolutely
$1 million
true.
doesn't cut it, sort of.
Right, we typically were spending is about $1 million on asphalt and roofs, and we're getting the buying power of $800,000, $600,000, somewhere in that range
Yeah.
of what we were back when I came to the district. So we no longer are as you said, we're not getting the bang for the buck anymore, so we can get less work done for the same $1 million that we're spending on it.
Remember, the summer projects also are what the principals are asking for, so it's above and beyond roofs and pavement.
Yes.
Part of the
There's
3 million.
repairs of buildings.
Yep.
Yeah.
Probably 70 to 80% roofs and pavement,
Well,
something like that.
we normally were spending about $1 million out of the 2.5 to 3
Okay.
was always dedicated to that. But then depending on the year, there may be some other special projects. If there were some other roofing projects, I think we may have had, maybe that went above and beyond that, roof repair, if there was some other stuff that went on. But then beyond that, it would be plumbing, electrical,
Playground.
mechanical, yeah, so HVAC work that needed to be done. There might be, door replacements, window replacements, whatever else needed to be done.
So I'm going to ask again, Board, how do you feel about increasing that level of reinvestment? And we'll
So
get,
it's-
we'll get into how much after we answer that question.
Seems necessary, right? It seems like at our current rate, we're going to not be able to invest in these projects within 2 years, right?
So can we pull that money out of the budget without, reducing our staff?
Well, that's.
That's the next
greater.
question.
That's the next
It's
question,
just the
right? I'm
question,
ahead of
should
it,
we
sorry.
target?
That's okay.
Right,
Yep.
so it seems to make sense, but I don't want to do that, to reduce staff, right?
Well, we've been
Well, there's-
underfunding for a
This.
while. I mean, I handed facilities to you, but even while I was on it, we were having a hard time with doing that. So yes, I think we need to increase the level of reinvestment.
Yeah. But I would say, let's ask the administration to go back and tell us where we'll find those savings. I don't know that it's going to necessarily mean reduction of staff, right?
Right.
So, I
Right.
don't want to jump to that conclusion at this point in time. Let's give the administration time to let us know what that could be. I think what we need to do is, if we all agree it should increase, which I think I see all the heads nodding that we should increase, and the question is, do we want to give them a number, or ask them to come back and say, we recommend, I'm going to make it up, $1 million increase, that would get us, almost midway to where that is. What actions will we have to take?
But there's actually
In
two
order to
questions
get there.
here. Yes, it should be increased, but it also should be increased and adjusted with inflation. So we can't just say $1 million a year for the next 10 years. We need $1 million plus inflation per year. So it's going to, it's not going to be a set amount.
Okay, if
Yeah.
that's what the recommendation comes back
Right.
as, yeah.
Yeah, and if it were, for example, if we were in the hunt for $1 million, if, I'm looking at the third question. If we were, if you were to say, yes, Dr. Winkelman, work with your team, come back with some ideas for us as to what that would look like. We would spend some time looking at what are some ideas that we could come up with. And let's say maybe we came up with, hey, here's what it looks like at $1 million. Maybe here's another option for $1.5 million or for $2 million as to what that looks like. And yes, these savings actually grow with inflation because of the nature of the beast as to how we do our budgeting and how our funding comes in. So it's sort of built in that it grows. I think that's what it might not be a single number that we come back with, or it might be, we didn't come up with $1 million exactly, it was 1.23 million, or the numbers will be what they'll be, but it's going to be based off of what the ideas are that we come up with. And we'll, of course, be revisiting some things that you've heard before as we've had some of these conversations. Anything else that we can come up with to try and make it happen.
Okay. So, Board, are you okay with asking the administration to go back and make a recommendation as to what that amount should be, and then let us know what changes we would have to make in order to get there?
To your point though, Sandra, can we request that we try to avoid, staffing changes as well as programmatic eliminations? I mean, as a guardrail to say, those are not under consideration.
As best you can, I mean.
Well, right, to the best of your ability, of course.
Yeah.
Of
course.
Let's not tie your hands, but we can say
Yeah.
our preference would be to continue our high quality of programming. Yeah.
To empower every learner, excellence in every learner, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, our team can work on that, because I think we have some ideas of what it means when we say staffing and programming. We're going to keep the same considerations in mind as to what we have today, but we'll also look at some forecasting and so forth with
with that and bring some recommendations back.
Excellent. And then the last question is, our 5-year forecast assumes DSEB borrowing. Are we okay to continue how we have been, which was we plan to use DSEB borrowing in the event that we get a windfall or something? Then the administration can come back and let us know if we might be able to skip a year or two, or.
We'll skip as many as we can.
I like that.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
But leave it in the plan for now. Is everybody okay with that?
Would it be too
I'm
much
seeing-
work to ask the question, what if we didn't do DSEB? How would that impact the recommendation? Or it's not even,
It's about a $2.5 million
right, that's what I'm concerned.
reduction, so.
It would be
that-
hard to do.
Then, and if we're asking
Yes.
for $1 million on top of that, that's
Correct.
$3.5 million.
Yes.
Oh, no, I
Yep.
understand that.
Mhm.
So
I want the community to hear that,
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
don't take this lightly if we have to use DSEB.
Well,
Yeah.
if we're asking for a possible referendum this year, that's another ask. So I don't know if we could say, what about not having it, the next year?
Well, as we roll into the end of this fiscal year, Sarah will be able to give you, updates when we get into, we'll start in August with the Finance Committee in September. We'll be able to talk with the board about where's our audit shaping up, just as we've done in past years. And if we've got a surplus that would allow us to pre-fund our summer projects money, as we've done the last couple of years, we're hopeful that will play out. If it does, that will give us that opportunity to not do that. If that's not how things shape up, then that is part of our planning assumptions that we would issue DSEP this next year. That would require fall action by the board, but we'll have all of that information as we're rolling into the end of the summer and right at the beginning of the fall. So our hope is that we'll have a favorable end to this fiscal year.
So the DSEB is a year-by-year discussion. It's not like we can make a prediction for the next 10 years. And it would be great if we can't do it. I mean, if we don't have to do it, that would be superb.
Okay. So we'll come back with a recommendation.
Yep.
On how much more we should be setting aside. And we'll continue with the assumption that we will DSEP borrow and we'll evaluate on an annual basis.
Great.
Sound good? Okay.
Thank you, board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think maybe don't leave. Are they leaving? Are they?
They're done. They're done.
Oh, okay. All right.
Dave, it's likely this is your last presentation for the board?
I would love for that to be the case, but I don't think so.
You anticipate? July?
Excellent.
Okay.
I think I'm back to talk with you in July.
Okay, okay, I
Excellent.
wasn't
Do you
sure.
have another
Okay.
jacket you
Well, we look forward to that.
We'll look forward-
We look forward to that.
Birkenstocks is,
All right.
Another colorful presentation. We'll be looking forward to it. Okay, so next up is our referendum discussion. So board, you have in front of you, you've got the table that was in the memo that we got, so we can use that for reference, as well as a layout of, I think this reflects option
See.
C from the referendum committee, what we sent to them. I guess I'd like to start out with just asking the board, we had support from the community based on what we heard from E.O. Sullivan and from the Referendum Advisory Committee, supported us going to referendum up to the full amount of option 3, is what we called it, and it was $75.5 million. So I guess the first question, but we also heard from recommendation from E.O. Sullivan, is that probably a sweeter spot would be somewhere between option 2 and option 3. So I think the first question I want to ask is do we have any board member that wants to stay at the 75.5? Full option 3. Okay, hearing none, that means we take a look at what we can do to reduce that number. And keep in mind that we have a remaining budget from the 2020 referendum that we can use as well. So the first recommendation that was in the memo was to take a look at those infrastructure-based projects that were on option 3, which are specifically mechanical systems as well as windows, doors, and flooring. Those two combined are $2.8 million. The estimated cost is $2.8 million. How does the board feel about taking that $2.8 million and spending it in the 2020, out of the 2020 referendum dollars?
I like that.
I just want to make sure, so judging from the language of the 2020 referendum, these two items can fit within the definition of what's applicable
Absolutely.
for those funds. Okay.
Yeah, even what we just heard, right, was the referendum was intended to cover
Sure. Maintenance items, yeah.
maintenance items, of which these fall under.
Okay.
So in this scenario, 2.8 million would cover mechanical systems, windows, doors, and flooring, and then the rest could potentially go to applied arts, or it looks like AC in the main gym.
One
We haven't
question at
gotten
a
there
time.
yet.
Can we get one question at a time? I want to hear the board if they're comfortable with reducing the 2.8 million and spending that out of the 2020 referendum. I want to hear that first, if we're all in
Well,
agreement there.
It's difficult because there's so many pieces, right? Like we could say, oh, we think AC in the main gym is more vital. Let's spend it on that and not the mechanical systems in windows, doors, and floorings. It's almost like there's a few different puzzle pieces.
Well, there's $6
Right,
million
so-
remaining on the, estimated $6 million remaining on the 2020 referendum. So I'm asking the question if we feel comfortable taking the 2.8 and moving it to the 2020 referendum. If we don't ask for it in our 2024 referendum, you will have to find a way to address those mechanical systems and windows and doors.
Just to ask a question, so last meeting, we said, well, there might be the $3 million left over and the $3 million of interest from the prior referendum. Are we still feeling that that's pretty comfortable? Because I know the work was coming in, things were happening, hopefully we're still there. Is that kind of a?
Or what?
Good question.
Well, we don't have any new information since the last time we talked about it. We did commit to providing an update at the next board meeting. Once we get a little further into the construction season, where we felt that we would have a little bit more information about where our contingency spending was falling with the summer construction. We'll get a little more information on interest rates. We really won't know exactly what the interest earnings will be until the bonds are fully spent and the government weighs in. That will not be for many, many months, but we're still feeling comfortable with the $3 million on that side, that the estimate is good. I don't think we're going to have any new information in a month on that, but we will have new information in a month, or a more comfort level in a month on the other three.
But remember, we do have contingencies in the projects that we have for this summer as well. So hopefully. if-
Are you comfortable with us having this discussion, or is this
No, it's fine.
premature? I mean,
No,
spending money we don't have, I just want to make sure that we're not getting our hopes up. or something.
Right.
We're not going to go over by 6 million, right?
No.
Right.
Summer.
I'll just be honest that, my concern is trying to spend the same dollar in more than one place. And I don't want us to be in a position where we made a decision that we're going to spend $1 here on something that's coming up, right? Okay, we're going to reallocate this project here, and we're going to spend some of these $6 million on that. And then it turns out we needed it to finish up the stuff across the street, right? And so now we're trying to spend it twice. That would be my only concern. Now, were I sitting in your seat, I would be comfortable having a conversation about some of this money and thinking about what some of the projects are. And as your business manager, I'm a little uncomfortable, only because I really want to be able to tell you, oh, the money's absolutely 100% available.
Right.
Right?
I hear you.
Right. So I'm just a little unsettled from that standpoint, but I think you're having the conversation you need to have, board.
So,
Okay.
Dave, for conversation purposes, where the conversation is headed tonight with what's on the sheet in front of them, no conditions have changed that would give you any more heartburn than what you presented earlier.
That's correct.
We just haven't solidified because we need a little bit more time to get into those projects. But what's in front of, you're comfortable with the discussion tonight? Because this is just directional. We're going to have more opportunities over the
Yep.
next several weeks to refine and hone in on those dollars.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm absolutely comfortable with that, even when I talked about it last year in September and said, start thinking about the projects that you want to spend some of this money on. Absolutely, we should be talking about that. Nothing has changed. I'm comfortable with the talk about $6 million.
Okay, so you're comfortable, I wanted to just triple check. I want to make sure
Yes.
we're all good
Yes.
with,
Fair question.
with budgeting we're talking about how to spend that $6 million.
Okay.
Okay? Everybody comfortable? Dave's comfortable. Dave's comfortable, makes me comfortable.
Right.
All right.
Okay.
And Sarah.
So I'm going to
She's
re-ask the
inheriting this.
question. Are we comfortable, are we bored, or is it okay if we take that $2.8 million for mechanical systems and windows and flooring and move it to spend on the 2020 referendum dollars? I want to see some thumbs. I see 1, 2, 3. Okay, all right, we're fine.
Still thinking.
It's okay.
Okay, that's all right.
All right, so let's go ahead and slot 2.8 out of the 6 million for the mechanical systems and the windows, doors, and flooring. That would mean our 2024 referendum right now is sitting at 72.7. So that is somewhere between option 1 and option 3, option 2 and option 3, excuse me. Board, are you comfortable at that number, or would you like to continue looking for ways to reduce the 2024 referendum dollars?
I vote to reduce.
I would like to reduce.
That's my vote.
Mine too.
Okay,
Reduce.
okay. So,
Wait, can I ask a question though?
yeah,
My vote still stands, but I'm trying to remember with the presentation that E.O. Sullivan had, weren't there some components in the potential referendum that weren't related to arts that we had community support around? So I guess my broader question is, if we say we're going to remove a lot of these maintenance ideas and fund them now, do we lose some of that base that would have supported it because they were prioritizing maintenance?
So the order that you see them listed on your chart in front of you, that is in the response to
The
the
response,
rate of
okay.
favorability
Okay.
that was provided.
Thank
So
you.
the mechanical, the windows, doors, and flooring
That
were
was
at the
pretty low. Okay,
lower
okay.
end of
Thank you.
feedback, if that helps.
Yeah, that does, thank you.
Okay, well, I would vote to reduce more. I do want to go back to Aaron's question a little bit because the AC gym has come up hundreds of times. Is that the cost of doing the AC gym?
So that is also an item that we asked our team to dig into 2 weeks ago. And the promise, because we always like to deliver on our promises, right, and not overpromise, right, was that we would have a firmer number in July. But I think early indications are around, yes, around that cost figure.
Around 3 million.
So I'm really hedging here, but I'm thinking it's around that number, but please keep in mind, we still need a few weeks to really
So-
get those numbers solidified.
so for
But
conversational
for
purposes.
conversational purposes.
We would consider AC of the gym to be 3 million.
And that number may go up or down as
Right.
we continue to work with our partners to make sure we're really dialing in that number and can give the board, right? Because we want to give you as much information as possible, but it also, it gets confusing when we give you one number and then we take the number back and
Oh,
so I
yeah,
want to be
that's
very
fine.
clear about that, yes, in a general sense, we're thinking it may be in that neighborhood.
So then can you give a little background for those of us who were not here, the first referendum, as to, I'm not saying $3 million isn't a lot of money, but it doesn't seem like a lot to have been left out of the first referendum. What was the logic behind not
Out of
doing
the
it?
2020 referendum?
Yes.
So there were a number of items that we attempted to accomplish through design for the high school. That first bid did not pass. We had items in there that consisted of a new servery for the high school. We had the indoor turf space. We had air conditioning in the gym. Help me out, team.
Yep.
And applied arts.
So just
And then-
hit the cutting
And,
board.
and we had a very favorable bid environment a little bit before that with our middle schools. And And we're hopeful that we were going to get really favorable pricing on some of these things that we thought we could get done.
So when we were not successful with that first bid, we went back and went through the design process again. And that's where we shifted the design to incorporate air conditioning, the former gymnastics gym that's now been repurposed as a multi-sport gymnasium, so that we could deliver a air-conditioned space at Barrington High School, which is consistent with our other schools throughout the district, which was lacking. So it was a way to afford that, but in a different application, still making sure it could host a competition gym, but just not the large gym, if that helps.
Could that potentially fall under safety and security? So take a day like today that's in the mid-90s, and if we have basketball camps in that gym, how, it's gonna be even hotter. I mean, at what level is safety, or does that complicate
You
things?
can consider it infrastructure.
So it
Are
could
you
be
asking the
either.
question, can we spend the $20 on this? Is that the question you're essentially asking?
Yes,
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
So,
fits within the language.
and I meant to make a note. Steve asked a question of, does the mechanical systems and windows, doors, and flooring fit within the question? Yes, and actually, the projects that are provided here in the different iterations, the same thing applies.
They all-
So we didn't put something down that doesn't fit into the parameters, so you can consider everything on the sheet as,
Okay.
it's permissible within the way that we had the referendum question written.
Yeah. That being said, the board did agree on our last meeting or 2 meetings ago that we would not spend it on fine arts
That's right.
classrooms or
That's right.
Right.
improvements.
Right.
So I
gotta be
kind of
honest,
don't
that
want to go
throws-
back there. but-
Well,
I said that, I gotta be honest, it throws me a little bit. I would love to reduce more. But personally, I feel like a lot of people feel like air conditioning that gym is a priority.
Yeah, it's compelling that it would be 3 million.
So
and we
there's
can maybe
two
have it
ways we
available.
could do that. We can wait to get the number back, right? And it would still be infrastructure that could be added, either done within 2020 or added to the 2024.
I see what you're saying.
Okay. I think you could do it either way.
Mhm.
So question, so for sure, air conditioning that gym was in the prior referendum? Because some of the infrastructure things were not clear what they all were. That was part of it?
It was one of the
That was one
outcomes
of the
that
things that
we had
we
designed
reduced.
for, is
Right.
to incorporate. And like I said, we had different iterations. When you even think about how we were
Yeah.
going to approach improving our physical fitness, and because of that curriculum had changed, our original plan was to address that outcome, but it was first imagined as a red
Addition.
box addition. We actually were able to do quite a bit more and take advantage of the dollars by doing renovation and reimagining it. So through design, we still met the outcome, we just did it in a different approach. It was the same thing with air conditioning. Rather than air conditioning the main gym, we still delivered an air-conditioned space for our physical fitness and our extracurriculars. We were just able to afford it in that smaller but full-size competition gym.
Okay. Let me ask this question. So we talked about all the things that fell off, right? Applied arts fell off, air conditioning of the full gym fell off, the servery fell off, and indoor turf fell off. Out of all those things that fell off, what does the administration think is the highest priority need to get done? Is that a fair question? I hope so.
It is. I mean, I think the hard part is we like those projects, right? I think there is an order of magnitude that you could think about. I think the applied arts, we know that there's curricular purposes, and so I think we go to being able to provide more learning spaces for our students when you think about it in applied arts. But then I also understand the thoughts of a large air-conditioned space would serve a great number of students. So I think those two rise to the top. I think we would be comfortable with not, going back to an indoor turf space. I think we have met the outcome of increased space. Would it be great to have that, but I don't think we'd make that recommendation. I think the servery also would not be something we would reintroduce, but I think applied arts and air conditioning would be kind of 1-2 from an administrative standpoint, but I don't want to speak just for the team. So, we met as a team for several hours earlier this week, so please, rest of the team, if anyone has any thoughts, comments to add to that, please chime in now.
I would agree with that.
I kind of feel like taking some of the plumbing off, maybe a part of the plumbing of the high school might be something that could come from the prior referendum to make this referendum more palatable to the community, and it would be, infrastructure, it would be, something that needs to be done, that's a big ticket item, but maybe we could do part of it, and that falls under the infrastructure too, I think, right?
Is that a possibility to do part of the plumbing?
It's tough to split up some of those projects in that there are certain mobilization costs and when you start a project. So if you take a project and you start to split it into smaller pieces, it gets more expensive unless you happen to have the funds all available to do the large project and you're talking about, okay, we're still going to do the project all at once, but now we're just funding it a different way. I don't know that we can pull the trigger on doing it with other funds right now.
Say that last part again. You don't think we can?
So if the question is, where do we come up with the money to be able to do the plumbing project? So if we're doing part of the plumbing project, we have to fund the whole thing. Do I have that right,
So
Nicole?
we have to fund it at the 4.5, right? I thought I just heard you say we don't know how we'd get the other. If we were to move it to the 2020, we've only got room for 3.2, right? Checking my math here.
Right,
So we don't know where we would get the other 1.3.
correct.
We have to find a place
Exactly,
to do that.
right.
So,
That's what he has noted.
right, so one place to do it would be, as noted here, is to pull it out of the capital projects fund.
And if we did that, if the board were comfortable with that, then we're still doing the full project and we're all good.
Right. Another place that's come up since this memo was written would be the windfall of the grant dollars that are coming in. Could be another thing, we could move them to capital projects. It would still be coming out of capital projects. We just have to earmark those funds for that. And to enable reduction of the 4.5 and adding it into the 2020 referendum plus the additional funds.
Can I ask
That's
a
one option.
clarifying question from what you said? So you had said of the two projects that fell off, either air conditioning for the main gym or applied arts would be the two top priorities. How does that compare to the mechanical systems and the windows, doors, and floors? Are those equally as important in terms of?
Based on the conversation we just had a few minutes ago, I think the administration also recognizes that we need to be investing in
Right.
our infrastructure, and we're tasked to try to figure out ways to increase that budget. Obviously, the more that we would, be able to take care of out of the remaining Bill $220, that takes some of that burden off. Because again, if we remove it but don't address it, now that's more infrastructure that we need to. So I would say administratively, we would recommend doing those infrastructure items prior to accomplishing, if there's no
Either
funds
of
remaining.
those.
Because of course, I'm hedging a little bit, because every time we keep talking about adding, I know I'm making Dave sweat a little bit over that.
So we could potentially do these two for 2.8 million and add either applied arts or AC in the gym and still have, be covered with those 220 leftover dollars, potentially.
As of the information we have today, yes, you could pair them that way. You could do
Okay.
the two infrastructure items for 2.8 million, plus approximately 3 million for an applied arts or an air conditioning solution. We'll be able to firm that up in July, but yes, with remaining Bill $220, you could fund one of those two high school projects.
Or the plumbing with additional dollars, like we just said. So let me
Correct.
ask another
Correct. Yes.
clarifying question on applied arts. So applied arts is essentially renovating the physics labs, right, that we have today. And I know it wasn't due until August, right, for us to come back and say, what would the domino effect be of that? If we were to spend that 3.2 on applied arts, which I think if I remember right, the amount for applied arts was like 3.3, right? Will we have a finished product? Is there any need to look at a domino effect, or will we be able to finish and complete that renovation and get applied art space within the physics labs?
Do we have that number firmed up today, or is that also something that we'll be able to bring in July? So it's still conceptual
So it's
around-
somewhat, so for a purpose of discussion this evening, we could use a 3.2 number or 3.3 number?
For the purposes of the discussion. The board term is July.
But yes,
Okay.
for discussion purposes.
Okay.
So
Again,
the
we don't
question-
want to overpromise because we
Nope,
still need a little bit of
understood.
time, but I think in general concept, right? Because we can also design, and keep in mind a threshold, like not picking really expensive finishes and stuff like that, but there's almost so much wiggle room, so.
We never pick really expensive finishes,
No,
just to
I
be
know,
clear.
but I'm
All
just
right.
saying, like, we would be mindful.
So we have 2 more meetings before we have to make our referendum decision discussion, or, what the final question will be. So how does the board feel about looking at those 3 things within the remaining 3.2? Look at the applied arts, air-conditioned gym, and the plumbing, right? Of course, with the plumbing, we know right now we'd have to take dollars from somewhere else to accomplish the plumbing. We're not sure if we need additional dollars for the other 2 yet, or if we've got room for something else, right?
Sure. Can I just, when does this, how are we gonna pay for this plumbing if we weren't gonna do it this way? When does this plumbing need to be done?
Go ahead.
Coming to a summer projects list near you.
Okay. So, thank you. So
It's tough.
the reality is we were,
It's in the near future.
4.5 million for a summer
I mean,
project.
but we were gonna have to
We'd
figure
have
it
to
out.
supplement.
That's
We'd
my
have to-
point. Like,
yeah.
I mean, we have, how much money are we spending on solar versus what we're getting back? I mean, my point is, there come times where you have to make some decisions, right? Like, so this was gonna have to be done irrespective, so had there been enough, not a referendum, did we have a plan for this? Or it was just gonna be like, we're gonna figure it out?
We always work hard to try to figure these out. And part of what I've worked with Nicole on is trying to develop out this longer-term view of what our facility needs are. And that is part of one of our strategic objectives that she's working on and will finish up with Sarah over the coming months as we roll in this next school year, to provide a little better planning tool for us to be able to see what's coming. We know that we've got some big projects coming, and the question is, how are we going to fund those? And is it split over a couple years of summer projects? Is it we're going to go low on summer projects this year because we really need $4.5 million next year and we can't swing it all at once? Those are the questions that we're not quite sure where things are going to fall. With knowing that we might have some funds left at the end of this referendum, we also weren't sure where the board's head was going to be and whether there might be projects that we would bite off with some of our maintenance work. So, this is all coming to a head right now for these conversations.
Right. I guess in my opinion, like, as I just petitioned for air conditioning, obviously it's a want versus a need. If plumbing has to be done, it has to be done, in my opinion.
And if I can just chime in, so I was gonna add to, the plumbing is a priority, and that's why it was actually in option 2, is where it first
Right.
emerged.
Yeah.
It didn't come in play in that last option, because we do know that is a project that needs to be up in the cycle sooner than later.
So if we're looking at 2024 potential referendum, we've only agreed to remove 2.8 right now, right? So we're still at 72.7, so I think I heard that the board would like that number to be lower. Maybe a way we could look at this is, where do we want the 2024 referendum to be, right? And then looking at the 3.2 we have remaining, right, on 2020 referendum, we don't know exactly what we can slide over there yet, but we know for budget discussions, we think we could fit in applied arts, and we think we can fit in an air-conditioned gym. We could have fit in the plumbing if we supplement, right? But we're not sure if we're gonna need to supplement or not the other 2 yet. So,
But can we also say, if we don't do air conditioning or applied arts with the 2020 money, we'll seriously look at it for the 2024 referendum? Those are things
I was
that are
gonna
on
get
our-
there too.
Oh,
I was gonna get there
say,
next.
It's not like we're dropping them, saying it's air conditioning or fine arts. It's, hey, we do need air conditioning, and we're gonna look seriously at including it in 2024 if we don't get it done in 2020.
That's where I was getting to.
Okay,
So
okay. I don't wanna
that's
be-
because I want to, yes, Leah. Don't, go ahead.
I would suggest that we look to take plumbing off and figure out a way to have some of it be the prior referendum and some of it be our windfall from our grant, or take it, maybe if we increase our summer projects budget, some of it's from there, and we take plumbing off and get it done.
Okay, so you're in favor of making a decision now to move plumbing from the 2024 into the 2020? And then
figure
we'd
out
have to
how
supplement
Mhm.
with either our windfall or to dip into the capital project fund. Do we have?
Sandra, real quickly, what's the windfall again amount?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The grant, there was a memo that we
Yeah, I
got.
just don't recall the
Million
numbers.
for the
About-
early childhood center.
It's 2 million?
About 2 million?
Wasn't it about 2 million?
2 million.
Can I just make a point to echo something Diana said about the plumbing, is that is rated higher from the community and the RAC, the Referendum Advisory Committee, higher than the mechanical and windows, so just when we're talking about, like, losing votes, for example, I just wanted to echo something that you had already mentioned, taking off something that was rated a little higher.
So, but we would be moving it to now. So we're listening to the community and saying, hey, we heard you, you voted this one high, we're gonna move it to now. That's how I look at it.
Well, or you could do half and half, and that way you
No,
still.
no, we can't split it up. We've already heard we can't split it up. We have to fund it another way. We can't afford it
We
all.
gotta do the whole
You can't
plumbing
do
somehow.
half in 2020 and half in 2024. That doesn't work.
Yeah. So I have a question. Dr. Winkelman, are we still able to go back to E.O. Sullivan and ask questions about that survey that they did if we want clarification?
Yeah,
Of course.
Okay. So, you know, here's what I'm seeing, without even opining on, you know, what to remove and what not to. But after I had some time to really digest the data, so follow me here. On option one, on the survey of the, what was it, 530 or so folks, if we look at just the support and oppose as aggregate votes, option one got 55% in support and 40% oppose. Option two got 47% approve and 48% oppose. And option three got 46% support and 53% oppose. So I think what I'm coming back to, oh, and actually one more point, preferred option. Option three did get 32%, which is the overwhelming majority compared to options 1 and 2, which got 16 and 14 respectively. But then, interestingly enough, no funding also got 32%, just like option 3 did. So I get what E.O. Sullivan said. They made it very clear that their recommendation is somewhere between 2 and 3. But I guess when I see that data, I guess, like I said, you have just as many folks who said they prefer no funding as opposed compared to actual full funding. And then the other 30% or so says 1 or 2. I don't know what to take away from that. And I'm hoping for a little more clarification, I guess.
Yeah, I don't want to channel and speak for them, but, you know, both the comments last time as well as the memo, it did indicate option 3, right, was the preference. But it did state that they believe that, based on the data, 2 or 3 would be favorably received, right? And the board could have confidence going forward with either one of those options. Their advice was to take that into consideration, and that's why they were saying build off of option 3 and bring that down to address those concerns that were, you know, expressed in the data.
Or another way to say would be, we want the scenario for option 3, we want all the benefits, but we want to pay option 2 numbers.
Or somewhere between.
No, or somewhere in between.
Well, actually, that's exactly what I was
That's why
gonna
we want to have
suggest.
discussion now to bring down, you know, try and do the benefits of
Yeah.
option 3, but bring down the number from 75 to something a little more
So board,
palatable.
so board, option 2, I did confirm this, is $60 million flat.
Right.
So that's I think that's like our goal, quite frankly.
$6 million. flat.
60.
60.
Oh, 60.
He's saying the option 2.
Option 2 is
funded.
60.
So they said, so are you're proposing that?
I'm not proposing we actually arrive at 60, but I think we need to be closer to 60 than to 75, I guess.
I would agree.
I think we need to at least bring it in the 60s, like, I think.
So.
Yeah, and
something
probably,
less than
preferably,
70 million.
yeah, preferably below, in my opinion, 65, right?
Or I would say if you're looking at the sheet, looking towards option 4 gets you closer to where you want to be. I mean, again, we're not deciding on these yet. but
Sure, no, of course.
65 is a lot more palatable than 75, and
Totally.
still gets you a lot of the good things that, the option C offered us.
So we still have 3.2 we can put into 2020 referendum. Do we want to earmark, Leah proposed that we move the plumbing there and then supplement it? So I want to make sure, Leah, you understand that. They can't split up the plumbing. You can't put half of it on one and half of it on the other.
And that would take applied arts or AC gym off for 220 or $20, but for potentially in the 2024
Could be
referendum.
potentially in the 2024.
Correct.
So one way to look at that is that the applied arts, is similar to, we've got a rather large number for the fine arts programming enhancements.
I was gonna
Right.
say, I would rather look at reducing that number.
So we could look at reducing that number in order to, we could ask the administration to go back and reduce that number and put in, make sure we accomplish applied arts, air-conditioned gym, the needed fine arts programming enhancements, and everything else that's in options 1, 2, and 3,
Yeah.
right?
Can
And
I?
come back and tell us, we got 5 weeks before our next meeting?
Yeah,
Something like that,
5
a
weeks.
month? Come back and tell us what the number is. We can also tell them, hey, we'd like that to be at, I'm gonna make up a number here, we'd like that to be around 65, or whatever number we say.
Well, I have a question on that. So the 12.7, if I'm reading this correctly, is a combination of the production shop addition and the visual arts courtyard. Is that right?
Correct.
Which one of those has the 0.7 million, or are they both kind of like 6.3 or so?
Here, I actually kept this slide up. So this is going back to the numbers that we received from the DLA.
Yep.
Back in the fall time during one of our presentations. So the West Addition production shop, right, that addition right outside of the current auditorium area, that was estimated at 6.9 million.
Oh, 6.9.
I'm sorry, 5.8. It's so many numbers. 5.8.
Okay.
The courtyard addition was 6.8. Right? So for illustrative purposes on chart, we just said 6 million, right? In other words, it's not so lopsided that, they're pretty close to around 6 million. But the actual numbers we were provided at that time was the West Addition was 5.8, and the courtyard addition was 6.8.
So with a little rounding, it goes to 12.7.
Did the committee have a preference if they had to
Exactly.
pick between the two?
So
Did
let
we
me,
ask them that?
so let me step through that, yes. So we had a full administrative meeting, and when we're talking about these concepts, we're really, right, we're talking about ways that we can enhance curriculum and experiences for students. We use these terms like fine arts, applied arts, and so forth, right? But they're all an expression of us being able to provide additional space. The administration would recommend in order of preference, right? If the board's looking for some feedback as far as how we would use that space, how it would benefit students, the highest priority would be the West Addition. Having that large production shop is what we're calling it. It's really CTE because that would then give us the ability to meet one of our goals right now of we're sharing space between one of our course offerings with Woods as well as scene development and creation, right? They're in one space and kind of sharing it. By adding that West Addition, that would create now additional square footage to meet that program need, but it now also offers a whole new space that we can start to imagine for other areas of CTE, such as if we want to bring in a CNC machine, or we want to start to offer some of these other curricular pathway endorsements, right? That's why we would choose that.
What are
as-
those acronyms, please?
Yeah, so I'm going to look to our
Please,
team to
what are
make
those?
sure I'm saying it correctly. So Dr. Byrne, you want to just
Yeah.
kind of fill in what I'm sharing here?
Yes,
with-
absolutely.
Thank you.
So applied arts is really that practical application to any content area in particular. And when we seek to expand our offerings to all students, it's become a priority with the implementation of the college and career pathway endorsements
through not only the fine arts, but areas of CTE, like Dr. Winkelman mentioned, which stands for Career and Technical Education.
Thank you.
And so in the state of Illinois, we have 7 different college and career pathway endorsements, and right now, we currently have approval to offer 5 of those. And the 2 outstanding areas that we are still seeking approval for are arts and communication, as well as manufacturing, engineering, technology, and trades. And so with the use of this production lab or CTE space, it could greatly enhance our programming opportunities for areas of interest to our students and also support what the labor market data is saying that we need in our community.
Would Woods class be in there too, or is it
It
different?
could be.
It's part of it.
It could be.
Okay, because I was looking going, where'd Woods class go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
We do still have scene shop space as well, so I don't know.
Right,
I'm
okay.
assuming you could do a wood shop class in either one of the spaces
Right.
likely.
So if you imagine it, you know, that scene shop that you're seeing outside of the potential new auditorium, if we don't build the addition, we end up with a similar model that we have now.
Okay.
There are advantages, right? Because now we're putting it in closer proximity. It's going to be designed to help get things off and on. Like, there are definitely advantages to this design. The benefit is now we have another space that can hold the Woods class separate from the scene shop, and you don't have those 2 things always working, you know, as best they can to not get in each other's way. But then that's also where you, now because you have new space, it may be appropriate that some of our Woods classes do utilize the scene shop at times, or we actually schedule some courses in there, but now we're able to bring online some additional courses to benefit more students towards those college and career pathway endorsements that we're not currently offering. So that's why we would choose that as the highest priority. Like, that would be our first administrative recommendation, followed by the courtyard infill, right? Because that helps now further straighten out, bring more of our programming online, create some more opportunities. And I'm looking at Bridget now, because now first I was kind of stepping on Melissa's toes, now I'm definitely stepping on Bridget's toes. But we had the meeting together, I promise. And then that third option would be that applied arts renovation that we've been talking about with the physics classrooms.
So let me ask this.
Team, anything to add?
You have a clarifying, you have a,
I have a clarifying.
okay.
Just to, so we're looking at a lot of educational spaces that are multi-use, and some are called applied arts, some are called flex, and some are called STEAM. How interchangeable are those things? And because I think we want to have interchangeable places that students can use to help us understand. Like, and how, are some of them more expensive than others, or can we make the room and then later the special things can come? This is something I've been wondering about.
So,
Because
it's a great question, Mia, and so, because it's a shift for us too, right? Like, for years and years as educational leaders, we build spaces for courses, right? And I have quoted Steve a lot, that is becoming more challenging because we're changing our courses and our offerings based on student interest, and they're driving a lot of this, right? And so we're trying to create spaces that are more, when we say flexible, it's to give us the flexibility to make adjustments and schedule classes that are still all in that same, area of course, development, but that it gives us the ability to mix and match a little bit more. When we think about this production shop, that's probably when you think about a space that can really handle heavy use equipment. It's large, it's gonna be outfitted to really take on that level of, lots of electricity, lots of opportunity to bring in heavy, like I said, heavy equipment and machinery potentially, right? And that can be any type of, that can be more of that manufacturing bend, or it could be more of the automotive and, and we've talked about aviation and some of those spaces, right? So that's what we're imagining with that west addition. When we talk about the fine arts enhancements, that courtyard space, that is trying to help create a little bit more flexibility with courses that are within the fine arts. When we talk about STEAM, that's a lighter version, right? So you're not trying to outfit those rooms they're not large enough, they're not built in capacity to really house some of those new types of programs that may be a little bit more heavy into the manufacturing, right, space.
Yes.
Okay, I'm looking for nods as I'm describing it, right? So does that help kind of give some difference of how the terminology fits with the concept we're trying to meet for our students?
Well, because some of them are more expensive than others, right? The new addition part with the production has a higher ticket, right, for that space.
It's new
Because
construction.
The new construction,
Well, you're
right?
building new construction. so
Right,
it would
and
be
so
more
does it
expensive.
come with all the equipment, or is that?
No, but
Okay,
it would
and
be
so-
able to handle, because we asked DLA to design it for that type of use
Okay.
as well as future use to be a little bit more. Where we asked DLA to say, hey, we want to renovate those current choir and orchestra rooms, and we're referring to those as STEAM, because again, that's a light renovation. We didn't ask them to design it to hold big equipment, flooring, lighting to support that outlets. It's more to give the high school the ability to say, hey, this hour, we have more kids this year that want a section of a particular art strand. And it's flexible enough, because we're calling it STEAM, which includes art, that we can house those classes in there, right? But if we also get a surge that kids want a particular science class, they can go in there, or a math class and so forth, right? Because it's flexible enough that we're not calling it the science classroom anymore. We're not calling it the math classroom. We're not calling it the art classroom. We're trying to outfit it that it can be flexible to move in and out, or maybe it's not assigned an hour, and a teacher that needs a larger space that's in one of our typical size classrooms can also say, hey, I'm doing a lab. And because I have that STEAM space, I can sign up for it. And when it's appropriate for matching my instruction, I can bring my class there. And because it's now larger, but it's a light refresh, but it's able to be flexible. That's why we use that term. Does that help?
And then I would just say to add on to that flexibility that you're talking about so well would extend after school as well. So like, if there was an activity that needed a large space,
Yeah.
to spread out lots of students, I don't know, Spanish Honor Society, robotics.
Perfect example. A robotics team sets up their stadium in the front hallway.
Right.
That's the only place that they've got available. There's one down in the cafeteria, another group that sets up down there. So after school, we can use spaces like that. Dr. Winkelman, you're like spot on. If I'm in a classroom space that, fits comfortably 28 students, but there isn't a lot of room to move around, and we want to do something that entails a lot of moving around, or maybe even construction of something, those spaces would be awesome for that. And there aren't a lot of those spaces that exist right now.
Are there courses we can't offer because we don't have space right now?
Yeah, and that's,
We can't accommodate.
that was, yes, and that was part of our conversation as to, again, why we want all of these things, but why we would prioritize, because that would open up course offerings and give us that flexibility, not only to have more space to adjust based on student interest, but also a space that could accommodate some of those pathways that we would like to offer to our students.
Because I guess I'm thinking, we don't want to have referendum fatigue, and if we're asking once and we're not asking for 15 more years, what do we really need? Like, what's gonna give us the biggest bang for our buck on this, right? Because people don't want us asking every couple of years, they don't.
Right.
But
And we don't want to.
We don't want to.
We don't want to. Let's make
No.
sure that's very clear.
Yeah.
We don't want to.
Two really pertinent examples, right?
Yep.
Things that we didn't think about when we were doing the last referendum. We have 24 students that are going to be traveling to Harper to take the welding courses next year. So they will be going there. We're gonna do some things to really make that work for them, but it would be nice if we could offer that within house. Automotives is another example. We have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40-some students that are interested in autos. We have no place to be able to offer that. We haven't even touched on aviation yet. There is a huge number of students that are interested in that. We've got some grant money to be able to buy the equipment to be able to do that. And frankly, we're struggling for a place to put that right now. We've got 5 flight simulators that we got through grant money that will be used, and we're gonna find a place for it. But these spaces allow us to be flexible and be able to do things that we just don't have the room to be able to do. So those are the types of examples, exactly what Dr. was talking.
Okay, so on that note, knowing the importance, sorry, Sandra, can you maybe talk through this potential scenario 4 that brings the cost of that down to 9.9
I would,
million?
may I introduce
Yeah.
something else to think about first, because I think it kind of talks to this I'm hearing what everybody's saying. We could ask the administration to go back and tell us, it's really an adjustment of the fine arts program enhancements dollars, right? What's the real number there? And then allow them just to use the $2 million to spend that on capital projects, and then make a recommendation of how to spend the last 3.2 plus the 2 million, right? So that would give them room to move something larger over into the 2020, right? And then come back and let us know exactly what we need to accomplish the applied arts.
Right, that's
The-
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah, the applied arts, steam rooms are already in here in option 2, I think it was.
The courtyard and the addition.
That would all have to come within there, right? But then what I'd like to do is try to guide them as to what we think that the overall number should be. Like scenario 3 gets us down to 65, but it doesn't give us,
No, three.
I mean, 4?
Just move over. Three.
no, I want to talk about 4.
Oh, well, you said three.
Oh, I did?
Yeah,
So,
that's
sorry.
what-
So
okay.
4 gets us down to 65, but it doesn't give us an air-conditioned gym. Right?
What does the 9.9 in fine arts for scenario 4?
It adds in the 3.2 or the 3.2 of applied arts.
Oh, I see.
And what does it eliminate, though?
So, right.
Does it eliminate the
Courtyard.
west?
And it
No, it
eliminates.
eliminates nothing, it just takes,
It just,
adds the 3.2 that
Yeah.
would be air conditioning or applied arts.
right, exactly.
Sorry, which one?
So
Wait,
it's
say that
really
again.
still the
Wait.
12 point.
So that's why there's lots of ways to skin the cat, right? Can we,
No, I think scenario 4, provided that you would choose one of the fine
One
arts.
of the-
Oh, okay,
and
okay,
Yeah.
that's what I
you
thought.
would add 3.2 back in.
Okay.
Okay.
And then, just to be clear, for potential scenario 3, that 68.2 does not include the 3.2 for the applied arts classrooms, correct? It says move,
it depends on how you spend the 12.7, right?
ooh, well, you really can't. It would either be 9.9 or I guess 6.8 or 5.8, right?
You either have to half it or you.
Yeah, you have to half it and add 3.2 or,
Mhm.
so I guess can't, I want to, sorry, what I'm saying is that I don't think it can be 12.7.
Is there any way?
It can be 12.7, that's what that adds up to, so it
Well,
moves
but then,
out
but then
the,
it wouldn't include the applied arts classrooms then, right? Because,
it depends on how you spend the 12.7.
We're asking them to come back and
Tell
tell
us
us
how
what
to
these
spend it.
numbers are.
I don't think I'm asking my question right.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm saying is, if we established that the West Production, sorry, what is it called? West Production
Production shop.
Shop,
5.8.
thank you, it's 5.8, and the courtyard is 6.8. So if you take either one of those numbers and add 3.2 to it, you either get, let's see, 9 or 10, not 12.7, that's what I'm saying.
Yes, that's scenario 4.
No, that's scenario 3.
It's either one, I mean, it's.
Well, but what I'm saying is then that 3.2 is not embedded at 12.7. Because the math just doesn't work out. Because if we're saying we can't have,
But you could do the air-conditioned gym too, maybe. So it just depends on
That-
how
that's
you spend that
under-
12.7,
That's
right?
true.
but that's
It's
under
all
the mechanical
how you-
system, right?
You spend the
No.
12.7.
This mechanical doesn't include the air conditioning of the gym. That's only 1.2 million.
So I guess, are we asking the administration,
Okay.
can they reduce the cost of the courtyard and reduce the cost of the production center and also reduce the cost of applied arts and smush that into 12.7?
Or less.
Or less.
Or less.
Or less.
Is that
Yeah.
possible? Is
Yes,
that
I
what
mean,
we're asking?
we can take a look at those numbers, but I want to just kind of temper some expectations.
Yep.
Like, we can smush, right? But like, an addition's going to cost 6 million. Like, I can't make
Right.
the addition
Right.
work for us and say, oh, we're going to do the addition for 4 million. Things like that. Like, those numbers are still pretty firmed up, right? I mean, we asked the architects to give us that, so just.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to give you the flexibility of the
Yes.
2 million,
Yeah,
right? I
yes.
wanted to give them the flexibility of the 2 million so that if they want to move the plumbing to 2020, we could afford to do that,
Right.
right? And then the applied, feel like, all of us feel it's very important to do something with those physics spaces and get the applied arts in somewhere, right? I'm feeling like the fine arts programming, you guys are talking and you probably prefer to have the production shop over the courtyard renovation. That's the need. And so then you could, depending on what the numbers come back on for the applied arts, maybe that's gonna be 4.5. We don't know yet, right? So, you could either do that with the 2020 plus the extra money, or we would leave it in the 2024. That gives you some flexibility. And it feels like where we're at is somewhere 70 million or less. 65 to 70 million is where I feel like I hear people kind of saying
And
that
I
they
would love
like.
to go closer to 65
I
if
think-
we could.
But everybody wants to be closer to
65
65.
or less would
Yeah,
be better.
no, I'd like to keep both parts of the fine arts enhancements, and I'd like to rename it to what it really is, so that people know what it is.
What
I
do you
know
mean?
I've been repeating that every meeting, but
No,
it's
and-
extra classrooms in the
Oh,
gallery,
yeah.
in the courtyard.
Oh, okay.
And it's a production space slash, tech, opportunity for career pathways.
Yeah, okay.
Yep, and you've been clear about that, Leah, and we have made a note of that, and we have those conversations queued up and ready to go once the board gives us direction on, these are the concepts and the projects. We will straighten out the naming, the explanation, all of that will be, made very clear to our community. And because you have been, and because these are terms that we're used to, and that we do know that we have a responsibility to make sure that we're also being very clear with our community on these concepts to make sure that everybody really understands what we're saying when we bring these items up that are not as far in the weeds. So can I try to recap what I've heard?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's just start with the number. So I'm hearing 65 to 70, but closer to 65 if possible. Is that right?
Yeah, and I'll elaborate. So for me, I feel like it needs to be under 250 per year for a $500,000 home. So that gets us, I don't know, like 67 or something. But that's two ways to look at that number, right?
So 65 to 70 with another preference that if it can be under 250, right? That's some of the
Well,
target.
one scenario is 251 a year. I think that would be okay too.
Yeah, right.
That
Well, 'cause
$1.
Here's what we're gonna do. That's guiding
Yeah.
for us, because we're not going to look at a number. I'm just being
Right,
honest.
right.
We're gonna look at maximum potential to be able to address curricular needs, student use, and addressing facility. Like, we're gonna look at it more conceptually as far as like, how is it gonna meet the greatest number of needs that we have?
To use our dollars more efficiently.
Yes, right. So that's how we're going to approach this. Just a small clarification, but I think it's important. When we're talking about these projects, anything that's on this list, they were all identified as needs. We have not been asking our community to weigh in on anything that did not emerge from the study that we conducted for our community. So I want to be fair to all of the things on here. Now, there is the reality of trying to prioritize, which we will do, but I just want to be careful when we say, just give us the needs. They're all needs. Like I see value, and it's going to benefit students, and it's going to help maintain the investment in our facilities for years to come. So even though we're picking flooring and windows and doors, or maybe talking about it differently, it is a need, right? Now, there may be a greater need that we've discussed, like plumbing. I also want to emphasize, we do recognize the production, the West Edition, but I don't want to in any way have people think that we are devaluing the other needs that emerged, like the fine arts, courtyard edition, the applied arts. That was a reason why we brought it up in the first place. So we're just going to prioritize all of the needs. Is that okay if I phrase it that way? Right? And try to give it some structure. We will go back and we will look then, utilizing all of the funding sources, right? So we're going to look at those remaining billed $220, which will have better information in July.
Yep.
To kind of, Dave will have less heartburn, but it's still not done, but a little firmer at that point.
Definitely.
Right?
Yep.
Right? Because we still have more work to go, but that will help. So we'll use those funding sources. And we also will look at the $2 million from the grant as additional dollars that could be in play. And where I need some clarification is, this chart does include a little bit of capital projects. Is that still in play for us as we're looking at these projects to be able to use any of those funding sources and try to come back with what we believe would be the highest prioritization with that configuration of those projects that fall within the groups that we talked about today.
I'm not sure I understand the question. So capital projects is also in there, so the.
Is that okay?
So the 2.5
Or
and
do you-
3?
The 1.3 million.
Yeah, the 1.3.
The 1.3 million supplement to
Is
the
that
6
still in
million.
play, or do you want us to?
No, that
One
should still be.
I think so, yes.
Okay.
The 1.3.
Okay.
What is that?
Well, and also
Going
the,
from 6 to 7.3.
the grant windfall, I think is okay too.
I mentioned that, the 2 million.
Well, I was saying up to 2 million.
Yeah, okay, so up to 2 million.
Up to 2 million, unless you guys are saying you want to go to 3.3. That's your question, right?
That was my question.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So I can do
Would that change
the
our-
6 million build 220 and the 2 million grant, right? So that's
Mhm.
8.
Mhm.
Let's try to keep it within 8.
Well, and plus some capital budget money, is that part of the?
I
That's what he's asking.
I asked that,
I
but
would be okay with that.
Yeah, plus the 1.3 million from capital projects.
Well,
So
I'm
I-
okay using capital projects towards facility for.
Okay,
towards-
so really it's about 9 million is what we have to work with as far as funding some things. We'll bring back a prioritization. Yes,
Question.
no.
Is the fine arts classrooms, should that be reduced because of the money from the Ed Foundation that's refreshing a couple of classrooms? Should that be a lower number in there?
It could be. The fine arts classrooms, I think it was 400,000. Is that right, Josh?
It's about 100,000 per classroom.
Plus the outdoor, right?
Plus-
So it's
plus
3
the
projects, right? So yeah, so
So-
that should reduce
So
that number.
300,000?
So 300,000, so fine arts classroom was 4.9, could go down by 300,000.
Okay.
4.6.
Okay.
And then AC in the gym is still a potential puzzle piece that is in play.
Depends on the cost.
Potentially, yeah.
And if it can fit within the 6 plus 2 plus 1 point.
Yes, yeah, I mean, I
That'll be
think.
part of the
Or,
Yeah.
or
My-
2024.
Part of the prioritization. I echo what Katie said is I've heard a lot of feedback that are like, oh, can we do that? So,
So
I
have a
would like
question.
that to have some consideration.
So are there ways that some of these projects could be a little slimmer? Like, I know that the Fine Arts Boosters just donated a sound system that's portable. So to use that instead of a new sound system that would come with the auditorium, like to just make things a little slimmer or a little less elaborate so that perhaps, that could come later with the PTO helping, like thinking about the stadium, it had an enhanced sign that came later from outside funds. So something like that could trim it a little on many places.
Well, you would have to either have your funding lined up while you're doing your design work, or you have to have a different solution in place. So something like a sound system, you would need to design your auditorium with a sound system of some sort. If you knew that there was private funding to support a sound system, you could then use that to pay for the sound system or an enhanced sound system that might be above and beyond what you otherwise might do. But you wouldn't design a poor sound system or no sound system with the hope that you get something later. And I know you know that, but I just wanted to say that.
So an example would be like the Field of Dreams. We did an enhanced scoreboard out there. We had some money in there for a scoreboard, but we enhanced it with private
Right.
donations
Right.
and advertising.
Right. And of course, after the experience I know that our community has had with sound system at our auditorium, we would want to make sure that we had a fully functional, appropriate sound system there. Doing something that was enhanced would be great, but we would make sure that we designed something that was absolutely appropriate and functional for that space, because we wouldn't want to spend a lot of the community's money building a lovely space and have people come in and be like, wow, this is the same experience we had in the 70-year-old auditorium, where we can't hear students. So right, there's the balance that you try to come up with as you think about this. So when you can get that funding commitment secured in advance, it makes some of that a little bit easier. If I might, I would just mention, I know as the board's thinking about these unexpected grant dollars that have come in, freeing up some other money to generate a surplus for this next year. And Lee, I'm reflecting on your comment and about a desire not to issue DSEB as we look at this next year. Again, we don't have our results in, but I can tell you that in the back of my mind, I was thinking about how those funds might affect this year's results and increase the chance that we would come with a recommendation to not issue DSEB next year. If you spend them or make commitments on those funds now, and they're not available, your finance team may come back to you next year or this fall to say, hey, based on how the results came out, we may need to issue DSEB. I'm not saying that will happen, but certainly it's more likely that that would happen if those $2 million get spent, because that certainly is a benefit for this financial results for this year. Just something to keep in
It's our
mind.
default plan of record, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
So board, is everybody comfortable?
Yep.
Okay.
Well, this was very helpful. The administrative team, I've said it several times, like, we will meet again based on the feedback to help bring some more concepts for the board's consideration based on the feedback tonight. I mean, I definitely picked up on some themes of interest and so forth, and we'll make sure that, our suggestions fit some of the conversation tonight.
And before we part, I agree with everything you're saying. Can I just make sure that the board doesn't forget that, we should at least still keep on the table the idea of abating some portion of the $6 million as well? I don't want to lose track of that as a goal for ourselves too.
So we just agreed to move 2.8 over,
Hmm?
so that means we don't have 3.2 left. So are you asking to reserve some of that for abatement? Or
No, just keeping the idea fresh in our heads. I don't have a number for you.
I guess
I guess if I
it's
had
gonna be
a-
difficult to, we just asked them to go back. If we want to set aside some for abatement, then I think we should agree to what that is right now.
Well, I mean, they still need to prioritize everything, right? So, I mean, if they're going to prioritize, then, I mean, we still have the discretion, right, to adjust whatever that
We
amount
do.
is.
We do.
So that's what I'm saying.
But we're asking them to fit these puzzle pieces into the numbers that we just gave them. We'd have to remove a puzzle piece in order to abate. I guess that's all I'm saying.
Well, but we can remove that later, can't we? We don't have to decide
We
that
don't have to
tonight.
decide now, but we only have 2 more meetings, so.
Yeah, we don't. I guess I would look at it, if we do choose to abate, that means we're just gonna have a bigger ask in for the 2024 referendum. If we can use this money that the community has already, trusted us with, I'm hoping we can use that money and say, and therefore, we're gonna ask you for less in 2024 because we used your money well now. So, it's gonna come from one pocket or the other. And I think since we have the money now,
Well,
let's
or-
make good use of it. Let's not waste it.
Or it could be a catalyst for us to, say that over the next several years, we also develop a plan, kind of like we said in the prior discussion, right? We have a cost savings plan for how to increase our, ability to fund more capital projects during the summer and maintenance projects. This could be an addition to that initiative. And so I think right now we're asking for what was it, $1 million, right? Maybe we ask for another $500,000 each year, and then eventually we're gonna be able to fund some of these other items that are on the list, but not added to the 2024 referendum. I mean, because again, we're gonna get a prioritized list of what these all mean. And I think we can also take into account that some of them may be more pressing than others. Plumbing, we've heard loud and clear, obviously, is a priority, so that's probably not gonna move too far, but I don't know. And I don't know what your priority is gonna look like, but, I'm just saying, I don't wanna take that off the table.
I think it's fine if we don't take it off the table now. We just need to understand that if we are gonna think about it, we'd have to move a puzzle piece that the administration's
Potentially.
gonna come back with.
Potentially.
It would
That's the
become
only way
its
to get
own
there.
puzzle piece.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I think it's its own puzzle piece. And it doesn't have to be a puzzle piece that we necessarily figure out for the referendum. It could, again, be a puzzle piece we figure out for the next 4 years, 5 years to meet that number.
When did we say we were gonna come back with the recommendation on the increase of the dollar set aside every year? Are we doing that in August? Did we say we were coming back? I can't remember.
We actually didn't say.
Okay.
I certainly had in my mind that it would be after August 1st.
Brilliant.
Look at those darts coming out of there.
Realistically, board, I think August is
Okay.
is a good time.
Okay. Let me ask this, board, do we want to set aside a number, to give a number for abatement consideration, or do we want to look at what the puzzle pieces look like, since we don't know what they all are right now? And talk about it at our next meeting?
I would probably rather see the prioritized list and see if there's
Exactly.
something that we.
That's my
Okay.
suggestion as well.
Okay.
I just don't
So-
want us to lose sight of
So
that.
so administration, don't consider that, and
Right.
do your prioritization.
Yep.
And then we'll see where the conversation.
Exactly. We as a
goes.
board will talk through it.
One thought I had, I'll just put one more thought out there on the table, is like the air-conditioned gym, like we did accomplish that air-conditioned space. That could be something that we, as we get further windfalls, that we set, I don't know what the number is, but again, for planning purpose, that could be something that we say, as windfalls occur, we'll put it in our capital projects and reserve it, just like we did for the solar. That could be something we could consider like that for that piece, just because it was something that we did accomplish. And we wouldn't necessarily need to add it to the pilot, just a thought I had as we were talking.
Right, just keeping in mind, it's all the middle school graduations, it's all
Yep.
the other things that happen.
And
there.
everyday
Yeah.
students are.
Yeah.
are in that
It
space.
affects a large amount, of students.
But again, we also need plumbing. So,
Exactly.
We want it all.
Exactly. Okay.
Sarah, the grant,
That's
unexpected reimbursement.
It is, yes.
Okay.
Right,
Just
right.
how we characterize, I just want to make sure it's unexpected reimbursement.
Reimbursement.
Is the
Okay.
grant.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, reimbursing us for expenses that we have already incurred for our preschool for all
Right.
students at the ELC.
So what we would need to do, board, is take that and have a motion to move it to capital projects in order to make use for it, for what we just
Great
talked about.
clarification.
Yep.
Let's just say thank you, because unexpected is lovely.
Yes,
And there was
thank
hard work
you.
going on behind it, I would expect.
All right. We feel good? We're in
Yeah,
a good
we'll work,
place?
we'll work on this and we'll bring back some information for the board's consideration at the July meeting.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Give me a second for my computer to come back awake. We have our agenda items for July 23rd. We've already talked about some of them, the minibus lease, the BHS TV equipment, and, we didn't talk about this one, but destruction of the closed session recordings that are 5 years and older. And then we would have an attendance update discussion and continue our referendum discussion and the Bill 220, the 2020 referendum. So if there's anything else you'd like us to consider, then let us know what those might be. Okay? Pretty full agenda. You guys have a little bit of homework? All right, so the board does need to go back into closed session, so we don't anticipate coming back and having any further open discussion or take any action. So with that, we will adjourn open, and board, if we can quickly get back to closed, I think we could be home sooner than later. Thank you very much.
And get Craig on his airplane.
Yes. You scared me.
No.
I was like, not tonight.
No, not tonight. Sorry.
I know.